Look at him, eating whatever he wants, never gaining a pound, while I'm stuck with the boring special and can't lose an ounce.
How's your lunch, man?
Amazing. Yours?
So good.
Oh, I'm so happy for you.
Cool, buddy.
Weight loss isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that can fix your frustration with food.
So, same time next week?
No!
Definitely.
And your friends. Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about. Like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
Okay, so Alison, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
You're taking us down this really, really emotional and difficult path of what you went through as a child when your mother went missing. Last week we talked a little bit about the night that she went missing and the aftermath and the searches for her and what your grandfather and your uncles and everybody was looking for her. And I'm wondering how many years did they actually consider this an active investigation? Do you even know?
They still, to this day, like the day before he confessed, it was an active investigation. They never said it wasn't active. I just questioned how active they were. If you ask the police, they would say, it's never been closed. It's been active all these years. I learned that they're required to do a certain amount of work on it in order to continue to call it active. I'm not privy to the notes, so I don't know what they did all over the years. I mean, it could be like we sent an email, it was active.
Yeah.
So, but they never didn't call it active.
Right. So it was never considered just a cold case.
Right. It was, but if you ask law enforcement, they would say it was an active investigation and they were working on it.
Yeah.
I never felt that way.
Yeah.
Right, of course.
I felt like, well, what are you doing? And anytime I had asked a pointed question where I was kind of demanding an answer, it was, oh, we can't talk about it. It's an open investigation. And that was always like the go-to, we can't tell you. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And so, I think you were asking me, like, how did I?
Yeah. At what point? Exactly. At what point, what stage in your life and what age did you start really deep diving and really becoming your own advocate for your mother?
For sure.
And started really digging deep into what happened to her.
So I will say over the years, there'd be like moments where the police would contact me and then it would be like rekindled and I'd want to help and do whatever. And I'd start getting all kind of excited about, maybe I can help. Maybe we're getting somewhere finally. And it was like every single time it would just flop or they'd stop and say, well, we can't tell you anymore. And I'd just be left hanging. And there was one time they called me and said, does an orange cardigan mean anything to you? And this is how ridiculous it is because I'm like, an orange cardigan. I should know this. Obviously it's important or they wouldn't ask me. So I'm like, I get all upset because I should know. Obviously it means something. Why don't I remember? Like think. And it would stress me out because I don't know. And then I would think that I was failing them and I was failing my mother. And why didn't I know? Obviously it was important. And that kind of thing happened like so many times. And then they just say, well, we can't tell you why. We can't tell you what it's connected to. We can't tell you who it's connected to or, anything about this cardigan. We just wondered. And, then I'm left with, just all of the emotions of why don't I know this? Obviously it means something, and just feeling guilty about not being able to help. So there were a lot of times that I would be all ready to go gangbusters and then they would say, sorry, we can't tell you anymore. And I'd be just left with that. And so then I'd have to back up and really kind of take care of myself so that I could get myself um, just emotionally healthy enough to just carry on. And so much of my life was about that. Like I needed to survive,
Yeah.
as a child from my father, but as an adult from all of that, and then when I finally became a teacher, had my own career and I thought, I'm an adult now. And, this is different now because I am not dependent on someone else to care for me anymore. It's my responsibility and I'm not going to disappoint myself, and all of that. But then this stuff started sneaking in where there was a major article printed in the year, I believe it was the year 2000. And it was the entire front page of the Sunday news. And nobody got the paper, but everybody got the Sunday news because it had all the ads in it.
Yep.
And I was a teacher in that town. It was the entire front page and two inside pages of the newspaper. And I was scared to death that my name is the same, as my mother. Well, at the time, because I'm married now, but at the time, my last name was the same. And I was so worried it was going to affect my career.
What prompted that? What prompted that news article that you didn't? Did you even know about it was coming out?
I did not.
How old
It
were you?
was. I was, I think, around 27, and it was my grandparents who I didn't really know that well and hadn't really talked to them because I grew up without them, and then I ended up in foster care and then adopted by people. So I really never until my adult life reconnected with them. And even when I did reconnect with them, it just was awkward, nothing against them, but there was just so much time that had passed. And a lot of my feelings were like, where were you? Like, why didn't you come get us? If you thought my father was a murderer, why would you leave us in his care? Because it wasn't good. we were taken away over and over and over again,
Well, yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. So your mother goes missing and you're left in your father's care because he's the parent, right? So at the time, laws were he's the parent. They can't just take you. Right. So tell me what happened with that and how, what was your early adulthood like?
Yeah. So it was very difficult. I can't even think of words to describe how it was. But after she disappeared, my aunt had come into town. I think I talked about that the last episode. My aunt came into town and begged him to let her take us back to Toledo, which was 4 hours from where we were living, and just let her care for us while he searched for my mother. Well, he never searched for my mother, first of all, but she just wanted us and make sure that we were okay. And then his sister, he was talking to his sister. His sister encouraged him to get a lawyer. And then it was, don't talk to any law enforcement. And it was like, then he lawyered up. But then she said to him at the same time, Lenny, my aunt, is trying to steal your children and she's going to turn them against you and blah, blah, blah. So he drove up there and caused a big scene, basically ripped us out of her care. She begged him, screaming, crying. Neighbors came out, like, what's going on? And she called the police and all of that, which I believe I said at the last podcast. But that's an example of him like swooping in saying, you may not be a part of my children's lives. But what he did was then take us from there to his sister's. And I thought that we were like visiting, just I knew of her, but we weren't real close. So I didn't see her very often in my childhood. So we go to her house. I assume we're visiting. And, this couldn't have been more than like a week or two after my mother disappeared. And then he said, well, you're going to stay here now for a while and I'm going to go look for your mother. And I like lost it. I there's not a whole lot I remember that's my memory, but I remember this. And I remember just clinging to him and begging him not to leave us. I just lost my mother. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know all of that. And you're leaving me with like someone who's almost a stranger. I barely knew them. And I remember like screaming and crying and holding him and like his leg, please don't leave me. No, please don't go. And my uncle, again, who I didn't really know very well, literally peeled me off of him, grabbed me like my waist is in here, like, like a football, took me upstairs and like threw me in like a bunk bed and shut the door. And I remember just like crying myself to sleep. And that was that. And my brother was there too, but I always was more vocal and more, just active, I guess. But we stayed there for a couple years, and that he would come and visit like once or twice a month. He would take us like out to dinner. So he was like the, spoiling parent kind of thing. And my aunt had 4 girls of her own. They were all older than us, but it was a lot of kids, and I always, I always felt like I was a burden. I always felt unwanted there. So whenever my father came, I was like, oh, thank goodness. Like, I'm so glad that, he's getting us and he's going to go take us somewhere, because you have to remember, I was a child of a deaf adult. So as soon as I was born, I was needed, like always. I was always by their side, always interpreting for them, valued, and then I'm put in a situation where I'm a burden. I'm like second youngest of all of the kids, and I'm not needed like I was needed before. So I had a lot of difficult feelings. But after being there like 2 years, I don't even know why. I don't know if my aunt said it's time. I don't know if he decided it was time. On his visits, he would tell us that he was working on trying to find us a place to live, but that, 2 years go by. So he did find an apartment, and it was an apartment in like a college town. Now it's all college, like living, it's all college kids that live there, but it was a 2-bedroom apartment. He came one day and said, you're coming with me. I'm taking you home. And I remember being so excited. I thought, finally, we're going to be a family, blah, blah, blah. And talk of my mother never, ever came up. It was like a swear word. You just knew not to talk about it. I didn't know what happened, but I knew enough of the emotion and the feelings whenever her name came up that I knew I should not talk about it. I should not bring it up. I should not ask questions. I had been hearing them say, she left you, she left for another man, she didn't love you, all of those things from my aunt and my father. And I questioned it. Like, I didn't wholeheartedly believe it. And I don't know why, because as a little kid, why didn't I just believe it? But there was always a part of me, like I would receive what they said and act appropriately. Like I believed them, but there was always a part of me that felt like, no, she didn't. Why would she wouldn't leave us?
Yeah, because you knew.
Always was that.
You would feel it. You would know it's your mom, I mean, and plus it's so traumatic for a child to lose their mother and then be separated from the father, the only person that you know. I mean, how's terrifying for you?
And I had just been ripped away from my aunt, who I did know well. So, that happened too.
When you moved into that new apartment, the new 2-bedroom apartment, how long did you guys live there? And then when you were with your father, I mean, were you frightened of your father, or were you scared of him, or was he loving? Was he caring?
No. He was always easily triggered. He had a very short temper. I think it really bothered him, the burden of having children, like the fact that he had to get a babysitter, he didn't, but the fact that we kind of stunted his life, so to speak. Like, he would go bowling and now he had to bring us, and we were bored, so we wanted like money for snacks or whatever, and we were always in his way or a burden, and then he would get mad at us because he felt burdened that he had kids. And I remember him coming, he quit taking us to bowling and started leaving us home alone. And, I'm in second grade. I'm 8. Aaron was probably 6. And he would come home from bowling and say, I had a bad game. I did awful because of you. And it was that kind of thing where it was everything that ever went wrong was our fault, because we exist. He wouldn't be home. So, I remember like Aaron and I would make pillow forts and jump off the couch onto the pillow. And,
My God.
there were neighbors below us and above us. So we're just playing. And the neighbors would complain that we're making too much noise. And then he would be furious and he would, hit us and threaten us, say he was going to just leave us. There was one time, and this story is part of why I'm a teacher. There was one time he hit me so hard, and I remember it was, he was mad at me for some reason and got dinner, which was usually a TV dinner. So he made a TV dinner for himself and a TV dinner for my brother and didn't make me one. And I was like crying and I said, I'm so hungry. Like, why can't I have one? Can I just have a little bit? I'll make it myself. Like, I kept at him and he smacked me so hard across the face that I had a handprint. And I remember looking, I went to my room. He told me to go to bed. So I went to bed. And I remember looking in the mirror and there was an actual handprint on my face. And we had a kerosene heater to help with heat. And I thought, what am I going to say to people? How am I going to explain these marks on my face? So I made up this whole story saying that, when people asked me, I said, well, I was playing with my brother and I tripped and I fell into the kerosene heater. Because I thought, well, there's lines, bars kind of.
You're a little girl, thinking of this.
Yep.
Because you want to protect him.
Yep.
Right. Of course, that's the natural thing to do. That's what most abuse.
And he would say, if you tell anyone, they'll take you.
Right.
And you'll have no one. So it was I couldn't tell. So I had to make up stories to protect him. But no one questioned it. Now as we're mandated reporters, teachers.
Well, it's a different time. Let's be clear.
It's very different.
In the 80s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. Most parents that we knew would probably be in jail.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if you yell at your kid, you're going to be put on TikTok and get arrested. Right. So it's a totally different time, which is good because, child abuse is horrific. And, a lot of us have endured that and it's awful. And it leaves a lot of scars. But in the same vein, it's people today, kids today, they will never understand what we're saying, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
They just won't.
Was your brother, did he abuse your brother as well?
He did. I feel like I was often the target when I was there. Now, there was a long period of time that we were together, both Aaron and I with my father. But there was also a period of time that I'll get into later that we were separated. And I think it transferred to Aaron where he got a lot more of the brunt. But my father would he'd either be at home angry and beating us or starving us, telling us we couldn't have food because he couldn't afford it and we eat too much or whatever. But he would also just leave for weeks on end. And one of the many times that Children's Services came and took us away for neglect was I was in 5th grade. So I was going at that school. 5th grade started the middle school. And my brother was still in the elementary. So he would leave. I would have to leave, before him because middle school goes to school earlier than elementary. So I left to go to school and Aaron was in his pajama bottoms and was letting the dog out. And
so wait, let me stop you for a minute. So he left you for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And there was no food. You were basically taking care of yourself. How did you guys survive?
So I actually went to the neighbor. So the landlord lived next door and was a really sweet older woman. And I went to her house and said, we have no food. My father's not home. do you have any food that you're not using, or any leftovers that we could have? And she would give us food. And she didn't tell, like, she didn't report it or anything. What got reported was when Aaron went outside to let the dog outside, and he accidentally locked himself out. So he had a jacket because it was cold, and like pajama pants, no shirt, a jacket, and got on the school bus to go to school because
He was out. He got locked out.
he got locked out, and who knows when my father would be home. It was cold. So, he got on the bus, and he was in like second grade at the time. So they call me down to the office, and they're like, so your brother came to school in pajamas, no shoes, no shirt, and a jacket. Like, do you know anything about this? And I was like, oh my gosh. And, I'm instantly mad. Like, now we're going to be in trouble again. Like, how did you do that? But that's when it was finally reported, and we were taken away, which, now I'm fearing, because my father said that we'd be taken away and we'd never see him again. And now I'm like, now what's going to happen? But it was one or the other. He'd either beat us, starve us, or leave us. And that was one of the times that he was reported. And the crazy thing about that was, so Aaron went to school, the dog was outside, but the dog stayed like at the house. And Bud came home, and my father, and Children's Services was there taking us away, like taking us to foster care. And he got in trouble by, like, he ended up going to court and going through all of this, and we were returned to him, but the dog was taken away. They told him because he abandoned the dog, he could not continue to own the dog. My aunt tells, like, right. He lost his right to own a dog, but
not to children.
Right.
And you're in like 5th grade.
This is in the 80s.
Yep. Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Different time.
Very crazy.
I mean,
it wasn't that different a time. I don't know how anybody could have dealt with that. 2 weeks. Did they know how long he was gone?
I think at the time they took us away, they did, and that was why they took us away. Because in the 80s, they wouldn't take you away for just a short period of time. So,
I mean, it's a miracle you two survived. I mean, it's really scary. Anything could have happened. You're 8 years old, living in the house with your 6-year-old brother, no food, no supervision, fire could have started, like anything could have happened. My God. I mean, I used to be left alone to babysit my sister when I was 8 years old. I would be in charge of my sister, my cousin, and all the people, and, taking the coal out of the coal bin and putting it in the coal fire. It's ridiculous. My mother laughs now, and I'm like, it's not funny. Like, I was 8 years old.
I was 8.
Carrying like coal and putting it in a coal fire. Like, it's not funny. But at that time, nobody thought anything of these things. But, I mean, you're lucky that you're alive, to be honest, and to be like how you are, it's another inspirational person that you are.
It was a lot of work that I did on myself. Like, I did years of therapy. Like, this didn't just happen. I didn't get lucky. I worked hard to get where I am.
Yeah,
sure.
Of course.
One of the things that I want to bring up, because I think that it has a lot to do with children who grow up like I did. We are not only like abused and vulnerable and whatever to our parent, but to like offenders. And I say that because the apartment that I said that he took us to when he first took us back to live with him after my aunt, we were in like an apartment building. There were like, I don't know, 6, 9 apartments there. And there was one gentleman there who was a sexual offender. I didn't know that back in that time, like they didn't register people like they do now. Like it just wasn't. And my father was gone all the time. So we had a dog, and I'd be taking the dog out, and, now as an adult, I know that he was grooming me, like, "Oh, you look so pretty." And I was like, "Oh, he's being so nice to me." I'm not used to that, and really, really appreciating the positive attention, appreciating someone being kind to me and I don't know, like just being kind and empathetic and loving, like I got
Yeah.
lots of hugs from him and things that I yearned for. Like I didn't get that. And that I believe is a lot of how abusers, I mean, I think they look for kids who are weak and
Yep.
in that kind of situation. Like I was like on a silver platter.
Yeah.
And he luckily I kind of have a big mouth and I we were going to visit my aunt that we had lived with, and I was taking the dog out. And I took the dog out, and this guy, Dennis, asks me to come here. And I was in a dress because we were going to see my aunt. And he was like, we were on the stairs, and I was like around the corner from so I was like a flight up and around from where our apartment was. And he put his hands up my dress, was telling me how pretty I was, told me that I was a princess and that he was going to give me a special kiss that only princesses get. And that was a French kiss. And I was so excited. He told me I couldn't tell. And, I just thought I was so honored that he chose me. And I remember we went to visit my aunt and I was like, I want to tell you something, but you can't tell anybody. And I tell her what happened. And, the police get involved and that guy moved and so did we. So we moved to a home, which was further away from people. It was like out in the country. And so then I went from like being in an apartment with other families who would help take care of me too, help give us food, help whatever. And, being a victim as well, to nobody, like isolation. We were out in the country. There's nobody but the landlord next door. So I couldn't no one would see that we were being neglected or that he was never there. So it was kind of like these different situations. But my point in telling that story is it really gets to me that, it's that type of vulnerable situation that is like prey to abusers.
Yeah.
And
well,
that was
that's
because he wasn't there. My father wasn't there.
Well, yeah, but they also look for
Broken
They look
families.
for that. Yeah.
broken people, and they can sense it. We do a lot with that when we talk with Laura Brand, our serial killer whisperer. I mean, a lot of the serial killers told her that they would look for girls that came from broken homes or were out, runaways or, on the street or couldn't.
Kids walking without their parents.
Kids walking alone, girls walking alone, just in the middle of the day. Like this girl wasn't even from a bad family. She just was walking home from church by herself. I mean, just vulnerable kids or vulnerable young women or young men. So I'm shocked that nothing worse happened to you guys in these circumstances. I mean, this is horrifying. I mean, you just imagine that terror of not having your parent there as a child. I remember that one time coming home and my mother had been rushed to the hospital and I didn't know when I got home and she wasn't there and there wasn't anybody there. And I was like 6 and it was just like complete panic. Like that feeling of like, where's my parents? I just can't even imagine what you were going through. It must have been heart-wrenching.
Yeah, you were beyond the latchkey. You were just raising yourself.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I mean, because Mike, back, 70s and 80s and stuff like that. I mean, it was like everybody, all my friends, the same thing, because both parents worked and you would get home from school. You'd be home for like 2-3 hours before your parents got home.
Yeah.
And if you're a good kid, you go home, you do your homework, you wait for your parents to come. But a lot of times you just went out. You lived in a neighborhood, you went out, anything could have happened. Anything could have happened. Or and everyone, a lot of times people left their doors open.
Yeah, for sure.
So then you moved to the country. You're what, 10 at this point?
Yeah.
Around 10? Yeah. Okay. And then how long did you live with them after that?
So at that time, we were taken away and
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the keys. And it leads on who they might have been running for.
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
I do believe we ended up back with him for a little while because when we were taken away, they took us to my aunt's house where we were living. We went back for a little bit, but he kept butting heads. Like he and I butted heads all the time. And I say butted heads like I had anything to do with that. I just think he hated me. I think that every time he looked at me, he thought of my mother.
Of course, you look a lot like her.
I act like her. Yeah, he was always saying, you know, how that I was such a bad kid and just always saying horrible things, yet demanded that I be his interpreter and at his side whenever he needed me to. So there was a point where I was dropped off, but not my brother. And that was actually good for me, even though where I wasn't the greatest, but it was good.
Where were you dropped off? What do you mean by dropped off? Where do you take you?
So to his sisters.
Oh, okay.
So I was there for a while, you know, and then there was another time where I guess my point in telling you this is that there were several times that I was somewhere else, like I was given away, so to speak, but not my brother. And that's because my brother behaved and didn't give him any crap and didn't remind him of my mother. You know, I wasn't a bad kid, but I also kind of started getting to a point where I'm like, oh, you want to hit me? Go ahead. Does it make you feel good? Like I started to really challenge him. But in addition to that, I was broken. Like I was really beat down. And that house that I said that we lived in the country, there was a period of time that I just didn't care. Like I didn't believe that help was coming. I didn't believe that there was like a better life. And I'm 10 years old. And I remember my father wasn't there. There was a barn behind the house, and I was crawling up to the hayloft, and I just wanted to like get away. And I was going to like just sit in the hayloft and just like be quiet for a little bit or whatever, like clear my mind, whatever. And my brother was screaming my name, like, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And as I'm going up, I just let go and fell. Like, I don't even know, 12, 14 feet, something like that.
Wow.
And I broke my arm, but literally in that moment, it wasn't like a premeditated thing. It wasn't something I planned out, thought out. I just was like, I give up. And, you know, I fell. I ended up falling like sideways. So I broke my wrist and I had a sprained ankle. I told my father that I fell, you know, that because I broke it and it was all swollen and I couldn't move it. I knew he was going to be mad, and he refused to take me to the doctor. So we went to one of his bowling nights, and he took us, and the people he was bowling with were saying, her arm is broken. Like, that's not okay. You need to take her to so he was getting all this pressure from adults that were his friends saying, you need to take her to check that out. And, you know, he did because of them, and it was broken. But my point is that's where I had gotten, where I don't care anymore. I'm 10 years old. What 10-year-old gets to that point, but I just didn't believe that there was really help out there. I didn't believe there was anything better. And shortly after that, I ended up at my aunt's, and we moved again. So we got taken away. We go to my aunt's. I'm there, and then he's working on an apartment again. And now when we're with my aunt, she's telling us that she's going to adopt us and that we're going to live with her and we don't have to keep going back to my father. And I'm thinking, thank goodness. And it turns out that what I didn't know at the time was that he said he was ready to take us back. And when he came and said he wanted us, my aunt said, no, just let them be here. Just let them stay. And he started threatening that he was going to press charges, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't know that literally until this year, because I started reconnecting with some of the cousins that were my aunt's daughters. And that's how I found out that actually she was fighting to keep us. And he threatened to get the police involved. And he said, I'll get my kids and you'll lose yours. And so she let us go. And once again, we're back with him. And then I started running away. So not Aaron. I started running away and staying at friends' houses. And there were social workers involved. Well, he never said she's not here. She ran away. Like, he never cared where I went. And a social worker came to check in on us, and I wasn't there. And that's when my father said, well, she ran away. Well, I left him a note. This is where I'm at. This is the address. I'm staying there because they're nice to me.
That's technically not running away. That's just.
So I didn't run away. Right.
You didn't run away. You told them where you were going, address. I'm going to be here. Here's the address. That's not running away.
Well,
That's
so I'm at their house.
Run away, if you ask me.
I didn't. Well, the police show up and tell the family I was living with at the time. I shouldn't say living with, but I was staying with at the time, that I have to go back. And I had confided a lot in the mom, who kind of took an interest in me, and I confided a lot in her, and she had also had an abusive childhood, so she really connected with me and wanted to help and said, why can't she stay here, blah blah blah. They said it doesn't work that way. And then my father ended up saying, so they took me to return me, and then my father said, I don't want her, so they took me to foster care instead of returning me back and letting me stay. They took me to foster care. So it was just never ending. That was, I went to like 14 schools. It was just insane. I had to do first grade. I had to repeat first grade. And that's something that always bothered me, because I'm smart, and it bothered me that I had to repeat first grade because I was always older than everybody. And I was older where it was noticeable that I was probably failed a year or something. And, I graduated the top of my class, blah, blah, blah. And it always bothered me because I associated myself with being smart and driven and whatever. But I had to repeat a whole year of school because I did too many schools that year and didn't complete enough work.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
What happened to was your brother still at your aunt's house?
So my brother stayed with my father, and it was not a good situation. I'm sure that my father hung on to him, like I said, because he didn't think of my mother, probably. I probably was a bad reminder, but I also think he held on to him because somebody had to interpret for him. Like, he had a purpose for Aaron when he felt like it.
Oh, so he could sign as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask you that.
If I'm not there, Aaron would do it.
Yeah.
And
so he was basically a tool.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he abused Aaron. Like, that didn't stop. And I hope that I have been talking to him, so I hope that he'll come on and be one of our podcasts. But he endured so much.
It's horrible.
I got out and he didn't.
Mhm.
So he didn't have his big sister trying to keep my father away. You know, when I was there were times where like I would get in my father's face and be like, stop it. You're going to go to jail. Do you want to go to jail? Stop hurting him. You know, like I would do that. But poor Aaron he just didn't have that. He would cower and just let my father beat him up.
It's a grown man. What are you going to do?
Right. And he's huge. Like
I know. I saw pictures of him. He's a big guy. What was he?
He's
Like,
a big guy.
6'5"?
Something like that. Yeah. Big. Like both Aaron and I are just like scrawny build. You know, we were not anything.
Well, your mother was like skinny and small and you know, so it's
we were more like her.
Yeah.
But like I said, poor Aaron had to live with him until Aaron kept running away. My father didn't look for him. So at 16, Aaron ended up getting emancipated and just left. Never looked back. And my father never looked for him.
And this is where there's the break in the system. You know, had they properly investigated your mother's disappearance,
right,
this could have all been avoided. You know,
this blows my mind that you think he may have murdered someone, but he probably is a good dad. Like I don't understand why they wouldn't check on the kids.
They're in the position of they didn't have any evidence, right? Where's the evidence? Where's the body?
When there's no body, I know, but there was no body. That's the problem. When there's no body, then it's so hard because we've dealt with this time and time again on a lot of cases. Yeah. The ones with no body, and sometimes with the ones with bodies are even more confusing and more challenging. You know, you can even have that, but when there's really no body, it's hard to define a crime when the person says, "Oh, they just wandered off, they left," because it happens all the time. We don't think it happens a lot, but it happens a lot.
I mean, we know of a case almost identical to what you're saying that happened in South Carolina. Very similar to what happened with you and your mother. Almost identical. Wow. And they never, we're talking years, 20, 30, 40 years before anyone like confronted this guy. And he just kept getting arrested for other things, but he never really got in trouble for this. And it's just terrifying. I mean, it's amazing what you've been through, Alison. That's why I just, your story is such an inspiration for people that you can overcome the most darkest things that happen if you have the will to do it.
Yeah. We'll send you that episode we did, because I think it mirrors it. I mean, because the only difference is it was just two young boys, right?
No, it was a young girl
and two boys.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And the boys, in that case, the little girl and the mom disappeared.
Yep.
And the boys were left to kind of figure out what happened, and they suffered. You know, it was awful what they went through.
And they were left with the father.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So you run away, you're in foster care, and then you ended up having a teacher who helped you.
Oh my gosh, it's the craziest story. So we moved around a lot. Mostly because my father never got along with anyone. He didn't pay his bills, so he'd get evicted, or he'd start an argument with somebody and get kicked out. Like, we didn't stay anywhere for very long. But we had been in when I was in 5th grade, and that whole story I told you of Aaron going to school with only wearing pajama bottoms.
Yeah.
That was the same school system. That then 3 years later, we're back in the same school system, and I'm in 8th grade now. Now, what happened there was that's when I was forced to go back and live with him. I came home. I had a paper route. My cousin and I were delivering newspapers. I come home to my aunt's house, and my father's truck is there. And I was like, oh gosh, like I was long over daddy's here and he wants to take me to dinner. Like I didn't care. I don't want anything from you. I literally came in the door, went upstairs, and then my aunt yelled up to me, come down here. I didn't want anything to do with him. So I'm told to sit at the table, and she tells me that my father was there to take me home, that my stuff was packed and on the porch, and I was going to go live with him. And I was like, wait, what? Because here I thought I was being adopted, and now I'm being forced to go back to live with my father, who is a known abuser and neglector, and we're going to do this again. Okay. So that lasted 3 months. I'm back in the same school system, as I said. As I said, thankfully the teachers and counselors and people that worked there knew the story, because we were there before, and knew that if we were back with him, it was not a good thing. So it was October, and there was a full-time guidance counselor who was a man, and then super nice guy. But anyway, and then there was a woman who was a part-time guidance counselor. So the man called me into his office, amazing guy, like I said, and knew that something wasn't right and felt like it would be best if a female kind of talked to me, and that maybe she'd be able to get a little more out of me. Well, she didn't. And like, she called me in and I was like, I'm fine. And then she knew I was not fine. And she wrote her home phone number down and said, listen, I know that things are really difficult for you and things are tough at home. If you ever need help of any sort, this is my home phone number. You call me day or night. I don't care. Call me anytime. If you need help, I'll be there for you. And I was like, okay. And stuck it in my pocket and thinking, this lady's crazy. I can't believe she just gave me her home phone number. But oh, guess what? My father's deaf. We don't even have a phone. So like, I can't call you anyway, but thanks. So I had that number in my pocket. And that day, it was my brother's birthday. So my father is driving a pickup truck. So like an open bed in the back and like a single cab. There weren't quad cabs at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, my father tells us that we're going to dinner to celebrate Aaron's birthday. And he has this girlfriend. So in the cab is my father, the girlfriend, Aaron, and then he tells me to get in the back of the pickup truck. So what you have to keep in mind is you're talking about northeastern, Pennsylvania, where it's cold. It's October, it's the middle of October. It's like sleety rain. And he tells me that I have to get in the back of the pickup truck, and we're driving into Erie, which is a good 25-minute drive from where we were. And, I was mad, so I did it, but was mad. But when I got in the back of the truck and he took off, like 10, 15 minutes into the drive, I was like tears freezing to my face.
Wow.
Like your nose is tingling. And I was banging on the back of the pickup truck window, and he ignored me. I was like begging to go inside because I was so cold. I was wet. I was icy. I was freezing. The wind from driving in that weather. And he pulled into the Erie Police Department and got out by himself. Didn't ask Aaron to go with him. Didn't ask me to go with him. And I thought, okay, so first of all, the last place my father would go is to the police for any reason. Second of all, he didn't ask for us to interpret. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but he goes in and comes out and kind of finger motions to me saying, come here. So I get out of the truck, I follow him in, and the police officer says to me, can you help interpret? Like, can you tell me what he's saying? Because I don't understand. I don't think I'm understanding him right. And my father signs to me, tell him you're bad and I don't want you anymore. So I'm 14. So I turn to the officer and I tell him, he says I'm bad and he doesn't want me anymore. So now the police officer says to me, tell him that you can't drop kids off here. Like, he has to take you home and we can get you help, but we can't get you help. It was a Friday. We can't get you help till Monday. This day and age, it's 24 hours.
Yeah.
You can get help. But I guess at that time they weren't. I don't know. But he said, we can get you help on Monday. He has to take you home. My father says, no, I'm not taking her home. She's bad. So I'm doing this like signing back and forth of being
negotiating where you're going to go.
Right. And I'm like I'm just, not involved in the situation. And So the police officer says to me, okay, do you have anyone you can call, anyone you can stay with? And I said, well, the only person I know of is my aunt. That's where they always take us. So he calls my aunt and explains the situation. And she says, tell them to work it out. She can't come back here. And then he says, you know anybody else? The officer tells me she said that and then said, anybody else? And I was like, oh, my grandparents, my father's parents, live in a retirement building, like of all old people. So I'm not allowed to go there and I don't know anybody else. And so like out of just total desperation and anxiety, I stuck my hands in my pocket and I was like, I don't know anybody else. And my hands felt the paper that had the phone number on it. And like out of desperation, I was like, here's a phone number. My teacher said if I ever needed anything, she gave it to me today. She said if I ever needed anything, I should call her. So why don't you call her? And honestly, I think I was just like, I don't know what else to say to you right now. So here's a phone number, buying time for something.
Exactly.
So he's like, okay, I will go call and see what she says. And then he calls and he comes back out and I'm thinking, oh, this ought to be good. Now what? And he comes back and he says, she's on her way.
Oh, thank God. What an angel.
Yep. So that day I was like, really? Like, she's my math teacher, part-time guidance, and she's coming to get me. Here, no one wanted me and no one would take me in. And my math teacher, who barely knows me, is like, I'm coming to get her.
Aww.
And I stayed with them for a short period of time. And then, so they had 2 boys of their own. And I was the same age as their oldest boy. And so they didn't have any daughters. I connected right away with her husband. Like I very much just really connected with him. He was just fun and funny. And anyway, it didn't take long before they sat me down and asked me if I would like to stay with them. We'd like to have you live with us if you'll have us. And I was like, what? You're asking me if I want you? Like, I never experienced anything like that, you know? And they never went through a full adoption because they were afraid that my father would like
cause problems.
So they got legal custody of me. I lived with them from the age of 14, eighth grade, until I graduated at 19. So I was with them, you know, that whole time. And the messages they told me were, you are beautiful. You are kind. You are, you know, God's child. You are going to be somebody and be something. Where all the years prior to that with my father, I was told I was nothing. I was garbage. I was trash. Just so many awful, awful things that he said to me. And believe it or not, that, you know, 4 to 5 years that I was with them helped kind of reset that. I also did counseling that whole time I was there and, you know, worked through that. And I did counseling for many years after that too, like on my own, and was really able to kind of tune into my hunch of, I don't know what happened to my mother, but he's a horrible man. And I don't want to be anything like him. And pretty much everything he said I was going to be that was negative, I was like, just watch.
Exactly.
Just watch. I will be everything opposite that was negative that you're saying. And I am.
You are.
I think that's a great place to stop for this week.
Yeah. But I can't, you know, I mean, we've met a lot of people, and we, you know, obviously abuse is rampant, child abuse is rampant. I mean, you know, on different levels. I mean, growing up in that era, you know, 70s and 80s, I mean, there wasn't a lot of assistance, you know, and things were swept under the rug. But I mean, you really kind of, my own mother had a very horrible childhood, and, you know, she had no reason to grow up the way she did, a loving parent and a functional human being. So I think just the fact that you're able to endure it is and come out the other. And you also, and she also had kind of a rescuer around the same age as you did. She had a woman who dated my grandfather, who wasn't, he was abusive, but and when they broke up, she said, well, listen, I'm going to stay for her, and ended up basically became her Auntie Mame, and basically took her around the world, traveled around the world, and everything. Basically treated her and so it really kind of is reminiscent of what, my mother went through, and she came out the other end. And but it's those people, those angels, like your guidance counselor, math teacher. I mean, that at your most impressionable, because that is, 14. That's you're a young adult. You're puberty. I mean, there's so many things going on, and so many things, and so they got you at the right time.
They sure did. Yeah. And she was a teacher. I became a teacher. There's no accidents there.
No, absolutely not. That was definitely fated. And that's a miracle. And thank God for those people, because that's like the most, like he said, that's the scariest time. So many bad things could have happened.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you for sharing your story today,
It's
Alison.
amazing.
It's an amazing story. Wait till we get to the next step on the story. And you get into the next level. And there is some things happening in the next couple of weeks. And that's what we'll talk about after, but we're going to start launching soon. So,
yep.
All right.
So till next week.
Thank you so much.